Only person who picked up the phone and said, let's just talk. I'll give you as much time as you want. I'll tell you what you need to know, and was very helpful in the information that he gave, and gave no indication whatsoever that he was involved in anything untoward whatsoever, but had good information that checked out and that helped us, and that we didn't have to take a deposition of him.
That was in 2009?
That was in 2009. So,
do you know if there's any truth to James Patterson's claims that Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago?
I've definitely heard that.
Yeah.
I definitely heard that, and I don't know that it was Trump himself as opposed to a manager there.
Trump's club, so
yeah,
people credit him.
I've heard the rumor that Epstein was kicked out of there for allegedly trying to pick up somebody's daughter or something like that. But I think I did chase that down as far as I could and never was able to confirm.
Emails that show Jeffrey Epstein mentioning Donald Trump by name multiple times, and private correspondence that he had with people including Ghislaine Maxwell, obviously his longtime associate and accomplice, and also the author Michael Wolff, in a time span of about the last 15 years or so in these emails. Now, these are coming out from the House Oversight Committee. They had issued a bipartisan subpoena to Jeffrey Epstein's estate, John, as you know, earlier this year. And so they've gotten their hands on a trove of documents. And these are emails that included Jeffrey Epstein on them. They were sent either to him or from him that mentioned Donald Trump before he was in office and also while he was in office during his first term. And I want to walk you through these emails of what exactly we are reading in Jeffrey Epstein's own words in these emails that have been released by the House Oversight Committee. And in one of them, Jeffrey Epstein says, and I should note, Trump did not send or receive any of these messages. He's not a party to these emails, John, but these are emails from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about these bombshell Epstein emails that mention President Trump that Democrats have released. And of course, they're running to the mainstream liberal media claiming that this is a smoking gun, that, see, Trump is in the Epstein files. As if that means anything, right? As if people didn't already know that President Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, at least at one point in time, they were friends, I guess, until there was a falling out in which, you know, President Trump didn't want to be associated with Epstein and all the weird stuff that he was into. Everybody knows this, right? This is nothing new. And Democrats, because they rely on people's ignorance, right? They're trying to fool their base of Trump deranged lunatics into believing that Trump was involved with these activities that Jeffrey Epstein participated in. They have now been caught up in a hoax, right? Because they released these emails that out of context and with the redactions sound really bad. Except when you actually understand the context and you understand that Democrats, again, participated in a hoax, okay, on the media and on the American people, because, again, they left out some very key information about these emails. You just understand that Democrats are relying on the American people being dumb, that they don't have anything. And common sense would tell you that they don't have anything, because if they had anything at all incriminating on President Trump when it comes to Epstein, it would have been released under the Biden administration. When the Biden administration was in control of the FBI, of the DOJ, it would have been released. They tried everything to stop Trump from becoming president. Yeah, if they had anything, it would have been released. That's just common sense. It's just common sense at this point. Also, President Trump would not have leaned into this during the campaign trail had he been involved in any way whatsoever, right? At least it would have been a smart thing to do. I don't think he would have leaned into it at all. There's nothing here, right? I think it's super obvious. There's nothing. But again, Democrats are relying on the American people being dumb, and on the liberal media, specifically outlets like MSDNC, carrying water on their behalf in order to trick their followers into believing that this is some type of crazy bombshell that proves that President Trump was involved with the activities that Jeffrey Epstein was involved with, when certainly that's not the case. In fact, these emails actually kind of prove the exact opposite. And I want to talk about it. So I'm going to go ahead and play a clip from a friend of mine. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with his channel, but if not, you should definitely follow him. Definitely check him out. let him know that I sent you to his channel in order to support him. That is Vince Dow, who I think did an amazing job of going over these emails. I think he does an amazing job in general. So I'm going to play one of his clips so that you guys can get an idea of what was said in these emails. And then we're going to get into the complete and total embarrassment that is currently happening in the media as Democrats try to take a victory lap on these nothing burger emails. Play the clip.
So you have one here. It's from Jeffrey Epstein himself. It states, "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim, whose name is redacted here, spent hours at my home with him. He has never once been mentioned, but the police chief, etc. in 75%. I'm 75% there." Okay, so that's what one of them says. Now, again, we have redacted victim, Mar-a-Lago, something redacted here. Trump said he asked me to resign, was never a member ever. Of course, he knew about the girls, as he asked Ghislaine to stop. Now, it's like, wait a minute. He asked Ghislaine to stop. The police chief, and in the official investigations, what Epstein is referencing here is that he's never been mentioned to the authorities, as Epstein actively was getting investigated by, 2011 at this point. So already it's like, hold on a second. This doesn't seem to be proving the point that Democrats want it to be, but here's the last one. This is in 2015, and it's from Michael Wolff to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, keep in mind that Michael Wolff is kind of like this respected journalist figure by the mainstream establishment, by the Democrat side, blah, blah, blah. Does raise serious questions on this guy, honestly, why he's having these communications with Jeffrey Epstein. But nonetheless, here's what he says. "I think you should let him hang himself," referencing Donald Trump here, it appears. "If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the House, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you, or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him generating a debt. Of course, it is possible that when asked, he'll say Jeffrey is a great guy and has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, which is believed to be outlawed in a Trump regime." So in a second, we'll explain again the context here and who this redacted victim is and why the entire thing is just completely bogus. But thus far, okay, even without the context, again, if you just consider what's really appearing to be said here, first of all, again, he's never been mentioned. Well, never been mentioned to who exactly? This is why Democrats don't want you to understand the context, because he immediately says the police chief, etc. Again, in other words, the victim and the accusers here never brought up Donald Trump to the authorities as what's being said, because, and the implication of that is what, right? Because he was never actually involved in wrongdoing, but we'll explain that more in a second. So he's never been mentioned. Keep in mind, that's to the authorities from the victims. Notice how the victim's name, who spent hours at the house with Donald Trump, is redacted here. We'll explain for you in a second who that victim is. But of course, in the second one, right? And I quote, "Of course he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop." So you mean to tell me that Trump was trying to stop what was happening, right? He wasn't trying to condone the, maybe not everyone knew exactly what's going on at the time, but undeniably like shady and questionable behavior that Jeffrey Epstein was up to. He asked Ghislaine to stop. How is that incriminating? That's actually showing, oh, Trump was like never a part of this stuff and he didn't want to be, right? He asked Ghislaine to stop. What point is that supposed to prove? And then, Trump asked me to resign, never remember, ever, whatever. Okay, the point is what? Trump and Epstein, as is well documented, had a falling out in the 2000s. And then in the last one, right? I think you should let him hang himself. To me, this very clearly reads like Michael Wolff, again, well-respected Democrat-leaning journalist, actually trying to convince Jeffrey Epstein, and they're kind of colluding together here, right, to blackmail Trump so that way Trump doesn't go after Jeffrey Epstein. Is that not so obvious from what's happening here, right? You could hang him in a way that either is a benefit for you, or you could try to expose him or something like that. And notice how they never mention any actual criminal wrongdoing. It's just being on the plane, which was documented, happened like once, or to the House, whatever, right back in the 1990s. But again, none of this actually says he did anything wrong. They're doing exactly, as a matter of fact, what the Democrats are trying to, claim today. oh, he was in a picture with Epstein before. They hung out a couple times. You know, they were friends maybe at one point. This clearly means Trump's in wrongdoing, but that's not actually proof of anything, right? That's just a mere accusation. Here's another one, though, from Michael Wolff. If we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be? I hear CNN planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on air or in the scrum afterwards. So that's kind of the context of this whole thing.
Yeah. So you're seeing that, you heard that. Again, shout out to Vince Dow, who I think did an excellent job of covering the context of these emails and the fact that it seems as if these emails are nothing more than just a chain of messages, again, not involving Trump at all, that mentions Trump and essentially a discussion about how to blackmail the president because President Trump warned Ghislaine that, hey, they need to stop whatever weird stuff they got going on. Stop that. I don't agree with that. Remember, Trump actually kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago for recruiting girls at Mar-a-Lago. He kicked him out for that, okay, which was mentioned in the email, which is probably a part of the whole blackmail thing. The fact that Jeffrey Epstein got kicked out of Mar-a-Lago because President Trump was like, no, I don't like the fact that you're recruiting girls at my business for your creepy activities. Trump was explicitly against that. I think these emails exonerate the president, to be honest with you. I mean, it seems like President Trump was made it very clear that he's not down with all that stuff that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in. That's what it seems like to me. Now, again, Democrats redacted the name of the victim in the emails to try to make it seem as if Trump was doing something shady with the victim. But yet, the victim's name that they reacted is Virginia Giuffre, who is one of the victims, and she explicitly went on record, sworn testimony, that nothing ever happened between her and President Trump, and she never saw President Trump do any wrongdoing whatsoever, right? This is what she said specifically. This is sworn testimony that the victim that Democrats redacted in the emails, oh, big bombshell, Trump is in the Epstein files. The victim that he spent hours with said that he never did anything. He didn't do anything. And this woman was gung-ho about all of the men that she claims she was involved with, right? Which, by the way, I also have to mention this because a lot of people, I think, don't really understand how these girls kind of fit in, right? How the victims kind of fit in with Epstein's operation. Virginia Giuffre also helped Epstein recruit other girls. And that is how Epstein was involved with so many girls. So many people ask the question, well, how did Epstein recruit all these girls? Because the girls that he successfully recruited other girls. They went out and recruited other girls. They went to their friends. They went to girls they knew. They were like, hey, we got this, old man that, you can massage or whatever, right? You can get paid. And that's how he was involved with so many girls, because he used the girls to recruit other victims. That's what happened. But one of the victims, Virginia Giuffre, explicitly went on record saying, yeah, I've never seen him do anything wrong, right? Again, the same person, the same victim that Democrats redacted in the email, right? An email that suggests that President Trump spent time with a Jeffrey Epstein victim. He spent hours with that person. You know what that means. You know what that means, right? But again, they're trying to rely on people's ignorance. And because this is such a bad, a bad smear job, Democrats are now getting embarrassed, are now getting humiliated on outlets like CNN because of the fact that CNN is even mentioning that, yeah, these emails aren't what you guys are making them out to be, when they mentioned that the victim here that was redacted is Virginia Giuffre, who explicitly said that Trump didn't do anything wrong, or she didn't see Trump do anything wrong.
This is an email from April 2nd, 2011. Republicans were saying that victim is Virginia Giuffre. As you know, she died by suicide. She's been very outspoken victim of Jeffrey Epstein. Here's the email right here on your screen. She wrote a book, as you know, and she did not accuse him of any wrongdoing. What do you make of that? And can you confirm that?
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, it's redacted who the victim is, so I won't necessarily take the Republicans' word on who it is that's redacted. And I don't know why they would necessarily redact someone's name who is deceased at this point.
The Democrats did that, though. The Democrats redacted.
No. I understand,
Okay,
but I'm
yeah.
just saying, like, our biggest concern is to actually make sure that we are protecting victims. And obviously, she wrote a book. She told her truth.
Yo, this is hilarious. This is absolutely hilarious. Jasmine Crockett went on CNN doing what all these Democrats are trying to do. Oh, Trump is in the Epstein files. We have a bombshell, right? Except, again, when you mention the fact that Virginia Giuffre's name was redacted, and she also didn't accuse the president of any wrongdoing. In fact, she said, I never saw him do anything at all. Now, all of a sudden, Democrats are like, well, Republicans redacted the name. I don't know why they would do that. Except Republicans didn't do that. Democrats did that. Democrats redacted the name. Why did Democrats redact the name? The reason why they did that is because they think that you're stupid. This is what Democrats rely. I keep trying to tell people, Democrats rely on ignorance. The Democrat Party only exists because, unfortunately, a significant amount of the American public, they're ignorant. They're not going to actually read emails. They're not going to actually do their own research. They're not going to actually look into things. They're just going to take the liberal media and the Democrats, their word for it. That, well, Trump is in it. He's in the files. He's mentioned. Therefore, he must be guilty of something. When that's not how it works. Okay? There's no hard evidence that President Trump is guilty of anything. Being mentioned in the files doesn't mean that you're guilty of anything. That's what people got to understand. And that's the part about this whole Epstein thing that's so annoying to me. Because it's at the point now where people think that, well, if anybody's name is in the file, then they must have been involved. And it's like, no, that's not how it works, right? That's not how it works. This guy was clearly a socialite, right? He hung out with a lot of people. And at the time, I guess a lot of people like hanging out with him. But it's not one of those things where people actually really want to let everybody know that, hey, I'm into this weird stuff that a lot of people are probably not going to agree with, right? That's not something that you tell everybody, right? That's not something that you just put out there to the world for them to know about because, again, that's not something that you want people to know about. Just because somebody may have hung out with a guy or they was friends with the guy, that doesn't mean that they're guilty of anything. And that's what people got to understand. But that, for whatever reason, that concept is so difficult for people to understand when it comes to this Epstein issue. And, Democrats are trying to play up on that, and it's backfiring. Another interview featuring a Trump deranged Democrat, right, running on CNN, trying to take a victory lap, backfires because, again, CNN doing a decent job of actually, educating their audience that, this ain't really what Democrats are saying that it is.
Thank you so much for being with us. What are you taking from these emails?
Yeah, I mean, these emails are clearly extraordinarily explosive. They implicate the president, that he not only knew what was happening in Jeffrey Epstein's circle, but that he spent time with at least one, if not multiple, of Jeffrey Epstein's named sex victims, as well as there's discussion in the email that you just cited between Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein about the fact that he had been the dog that didn't bark, and they specifically are talking about the police. So what this implicates is that potentially going back all the way to 2011, even after Jeffrey Epstein had been investigated for criminal activity, not just in sex trafficking, but also for financial crimes, which we know U.S. Attorney Acosta lied under his deposition about, that Donald Trump was being named by Epstein and by Ghislaine Maxwell as being the dog that didn't bark on them. And so the question is, what did Donald Trump have on them? Was he engaged in these activities? And why is Donald Trump calling Republican members of the House today and yesterday to threaten them to get off of the discharge petition? If he thinks that we should be focused on the reopening the government, then why is he personally calling Republicans and threatening them right now?
Well, because it's a hoax. And see, a lot of people gave the president backlash when he said, yeah, this is a hoax. Now I'm starting to really understand what he's saying. It is a hoax, right? Like the Democrat witch hunt on the Epstein thing is 100% a hoax. And you can tell she just lied by omission. She did mention the fact that in the same email, right, President Trump said, hey, Ghislaine needs to stop, right? That President Trump told them, stop. right? That he don't agree with whatever weird stuff they're into. She didn't mention that. Why did she leave that out? Because it doesn't fit the narrative that they're trying to push. A disgusting narrative, by the way. I mean, these are sick people, to be honest with you. Also on top of that, she conveniently doesn't mention the name of the victim. Well, why is she not doing that? Well, it's because they want you to think that it was just some random girl, right, that, Trump spent a lot of time with, right? But they don't want you to know that the person that he spent time with also stated under oath, I never witnessed him do anything wrong. He is not a part of any of the individuals that, stuff happened with, okay? Again, they thrive on ignorance. They think you're stupid. I ask myself, if you're liberal, if you're a Democrat, how can you not be offended? How can you not be offended by the fact that Democrats are relying on you being stupid, being dumb? It's crazy to me, right? Your intelligence should be insulted by this.
So help us understand this, because Democrats redacted Virginia Giuffre's name. And I mean, I have to say, these emails.
It came to us redacted. No, it came to us redacted.
It came to you redacted. Okay.
Yes, so we don't even know. That is the claim of the White House. So that's something that we should be asking questions about. Yes. Okay,
really interesting. So, and House Republicans came out and mentioned the redaction there. It is of significance that Virginia Giuffre, who was so vocal, right, and was not known for pulling any punches about what happened to her, did not accuse Trump of wrongdoing. And so I want to know kind of what you think of that, because there is this discrepancy. You have Epstein saying this in an email to Maxwell. Maxwell, we know about her in terms of her credibility. She doesn't really have credibility, right, when it comes to being honest. I'd say people have the same questions about Epstein. Giuffre has said that there wasn't wrong. She hasn't claimed wrongdoing with Trump. So how do you kind of square what you're reading in the email with what Virginia Giuffre had said publicly?
Well, first of all, like I just mentioned, we don't know if the White House's claim that redacted name actually is Virginia Giuffre. And
yes, you do. You do know you lied. I ain't gonna say it. They know. They definitely knew. They 100% knew. And now that she's got caught, this is a screenshot right here. Then they got caught in the lies. Look at them try to clean it up, right? Look at them try to clean it up. This is the face of somebody that got caught in a lie. This is the face of a hoax that is backfired.
Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I think it's convenient that the White House is trying to choose an alibi that they think. And, if you read the email, this is private correspondence between Maxwell and Epstein. Why does the White House know at all who Donald Trump was hanging out with at Jeffrey Epstein's house, who was one of the sex trafficking accusers, right? Like, this should be raising every hair on the back of your neck right now. We don't even know that is who is named in this email. Secondly, whether or not...
Well, release them unredacted then. Release them unredacted. Democrats are the ones that released this. Oh, well, we received them redacted. Okay, so if you received it redacted, why are you trying to accuse the president of doing something that in the emails there's no proof and evidence that he did anything at all, right? Why are you trying to automatically jump to these conclusions that he committed some type of crime or engaged in inappropriate behavior if you don't know who the victim is? But again, what they're doing is that they're trying to take advantage of people's ignorance on this topic. That's what they're doing.
Virginia Giuffre has accused the president of wrongdoing. What I'd like to say to the American people is believe your eyes. We have all seen the photographs of Donald Trump with underage girls sitting on his lap. We know that he was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein for more than
Wait, hold on. Underage girls sitting on his lap. Was that his daughter? Yeah, I'm sure those pictures were Ivanka and probably his grandchildren as well, too. I've seen those pictures. Also, there was a picture floating around that wasn't real of Trump with a teenage girl. That, again, was debunked. So, again, there's nothing here. This woman is lying on national television, again, trying to accuse the president of again, horrific things with zero evidence, no hard evidence whatsoever. These people should be ashamed of themselves.
decade. We know that he has not complied with our congressional subpoena of the DOJ files, and we know that he is named multiple times in those files. So believe your eyes, believe your ears. And my question is, if they were not engaged in an elaborate smokescreen and cover-up, then why the hell is the president calling and threatening members of Congress for them to not take a vote on releasing these files?
Because of stuff like this. This is why. It's stuff like this. It's when you release all these emails and stuff, this information with no context behind it, people can just draw their own conclusions about stuff that might not necessarily be true. That's why. And that's what people need to understand about this whole Epstein thing. If they just released a whole bunch of stuff with no context, people are going to be accused of things that they didn't do. We're seeing Democrats literally do that right now. They're doing that right now. This is, again, this is shameful. Very shameful. Especially considering the fact that we actually have a copy of the unredacted email that has been released. And lo and behold, there's Virginia's name. There's Virginia's name. So again, this woman is lying. She's lying.
After these files have already been subpoenaed, they are trying to bury this, and the president is personally trying to stop Congress from asking for these files again.
And I do want to ask you about that, because it is unusual that Lauren Boebert is there for this meeting. But first, just to really zoom in on this redacted name here. So are you of the belief that the victim that Epstein is alleging Trump spent time with at his house is someone besides Virginia Giuffre, or could be someone besides Virginia Giuffre?
I do not have information that would allow me to answer that question.
Yeah, so why are you insinuating that wrongdoing happened if you don't know that? If you don't know that information, why are you insinuating that he did something wrong? Again, this is reckless. This is reckless stuff. This is disgusting. You don't just smear random people being involved in that type of stuff without hard evidence. You should not do that. But that's what Democrats are doing. Because there's no bottom with these people. They're desperate. This is desperation.
What I know is that we've received 23,000 documents from the Jeffrey Epstein estate, including this email.
And this is the best that you got, right? They don't have anything. 23,000 documents. This is what you got? This is the best that you got? Yeah, this is a hoax.
Okay, but then let me zero in on this real quick. So can I just ask you this? So you do not have knowledge that tells you that is Virginia Giuffre?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so explain this again to us. You received this, and it is redacted. There is no name. And so you're saying it's the White House that's saying this is Giuffre?
Yes.
And what kind of questions does that raise for you?
Well, as I said, first and foremost, we have subpoenaed these files from the White House, from the Department of Justice. We have subpoenaed financial documents. We have subpoenaed the estate. And thus far, Donald Trump and the White House have refused to disclose the DOJ documents that are clear on what the FBI investigated, who was facing potential criminal charges, who was implicated, why the president is named in those files. So we don't know what is in the White House, DOJ, FBI files. But what we do know is that the estate has been producing documents in tranches, and they have been redacting those documents as they have been sent to the committee. I have not reviewed the original transmittal that came from the estate, but my understanding is that in that 23,000-page document production that happened over the weekend, that there were redactions produced by the estate. And so it is my understanding that it is the White House's response. They are trying to claim that it is Virginia Giuffre, and we do not know if that is the case or not. And while we can ask the estate to verify that, I don't have that information in front of me right now.
Okay, and back to Congresswoman Lauren.
Embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing stuff. This is, wow. Wow, they thought they had something, right? They thought they had something. Yeah. Guys, again, I don't know how much I have to stress that this is sad, it's pathetic, and again, most of all, it's disgusting. They're taking advantage of a tragic situation that they're replaying in public, right? For the public to engage in, despite the fact there are probably a lot of victims who don't want to relive this, but they're doing it anyways for their own political gain. And now they're getting embarrassed on national television because of the fact that their witch hunt against President Trump is backfiring. The emails, as I read them, as I understand them, actually help exonerate the president. It helps me confirm that, yeah, he wasn't involved. Because, again, if he actually wasn't, if they actually had anything, it would have been released under the Biden administration before the election. It's just common sense. It's common sense. And, again, this is why this is a huge nothing burger. This is why they don't have anything. You know they don't have anything because if they had anything, it would already been out there. So, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.